John, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm great, Tony. Great to be with you.
I do realize the irony of us being indoors recording this.
Yes, I've only done a couple outdoors, and
Yeah,
and then nice
that'd
climate.
be that'd be nice. That'd be nice. So I've really been looking forward to interviewing you because instinctively, when I saw the topic of your book, I knew that this is something that would resonate me and I need to do more of, and we all need to do more of. Tell us a little bit. I mean, this incredible stat that we spend 93% of our lives indoors. Is that right?
It seems to be, yes, that's the data. 86% in buildings and 7% in vehicles,
Mm,
which means that we spend 7% outside, most of which is incidental time we just
mm,
happen to go from one parking lot to the next, or walking down the sidewalk, or stepping out the door to pick up a delivery. And that time is, from a biological sense,
mm.
completely wasted. We uh, don't know, I think, as a society, that time outside, time inside, time in your environment is actually biological information. It's information for your brain and your body. And the kind of information we've been giving our brains and bodies inside is really wreaking havoc on chronic disease and longevity.
Mm. And what is that down to? I'm going to be fairly smug here and say that I live in Portugal. I used to live in the UK. It's much easier to be outside more here than it
Yeah,
is in the UK. But
of
is it
course.
primarily light or air?
Um, well, let me just say that, as you know, because you used to live in the UK, there's a great history of being outdoors in all sorts of weather
Mm.
in the UK, and of course the uh, British are fantastic gardeners, and some of the best research about green exercise uh, was done at Essex, and they have a fantastic department. Surrey is the most beautiful gardens in the world, as far as I can tell,
Mm.
and just it just shows that even in darker weather that's cloudy and rainy and maybe not ideal, people sort of get up and go if that's what's in their culture, if that's what's
Mm.
in their hearts, if that's what's in their activities for the day. And that turns out to be really good for both chronic disease prevention and treatment and longevity. I,
Mm.
I'm sorry, I've just gone right past your question. Is it primarily light or is it primarily air?
Yeah.
Light.
Mm.
And light is the primary Zeitgeber, Zeitgeber. It was a
Mm.
new word for me when I did the 2,200 studies I read for this book, Zeitgeber.
Mm.
The Zeitgeber is a indication to your um, brain and overall circadian rhythm of what's important. A
Yeah.
Zeitgeber is and there's all kinds of Zeitgebers. The most primary and most important one is light. Also, when you eat, also darkness. These are signals to your brain about what time it is and what time it ought to be in your body. And the
Mm.
reason light's so important, Tony, is that it is the most powerful Zeitgeber.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I sort of, personally speaking, have found that having moved to a much more outdoor climate, but I
Right.
knew this before from when we lived in London, I felt my health was significantly better in summer than winter. And I didn't feel it was because of the light. I felt it was because of the air quality. I felt that spending a lot of time indoors in an environment where you got to keep radiators on,
Yeah.
just didn't really suit my health. And being able to have that, I think the
Right.
Germans call it Luften, which is an open window and a breeze.
Yeah,
That
that's
I
right.
sort of really liked that.
I do too. And that's a great term, isn't it? And
Mm,
it gives you the energy of it.
mm,
Um, Well, there are lots of different kinds of things to say about this. One is that indoors is actually biologically toxic for a lot of people. And it is primarily because of the air inside,
mm,
and what's in the air inside. It isn't as much the light, except that inside, the primary light that you get is from monitors
mm,
and from LEDs,
mm,
and that's bright white light. But few people know that the light indoors is 25 to 50 times less bright than it is outdoors, even on a cloudy day, even
Mm.
on a London day. You get a 3 to 5,000 lux on a day, and indoors it's 200 lux, maybe
Yeah.
three. And if it's kind of bright, and on a sunny day, it's 100,000 lux.
Mm.
And what you need as a morning start signal is 10 to 15 minutes of that bright morning light outside, stepping in a doorway, through an open window or a window with a screen, without sunglasses on. Within 10 to 15 minutes uh, within 90 minutes of waking,
Mm.
10 to 15 minutes of bright daylight will reset your circadian rhythm so that you now have a big boost of cortisol in the
Mm.
morning. You have told your brain, your pineal gland, to release melatonin that night about 12 to 14 hours later, so you get sleepy. You create the opportunity for deep sleep, which is slow wave sleep, which is often in the first couple of cycles of sleep most, which is the kind of sleep that we miss the most
Mm.
and is most important for brain cleaning. Brain cleaning sounds weird, but it was described in 2013. There was a Nobel Prize given for it in 2017. It's the glymphatic system, which wasn't around or wasn't
Mm.
described when I was in medical school or teaching. And but what it does is wash your brain, your spinal fluid rinses your brain of beta amyloid and
Mm.
tau, the proteins
Mm.
associated with dementia. And your brain actually shrinks about 40% in this deep sleep lymphatic system cycle.
Mm.
Essential, really, for not only that, but also for bone building for women, especially important for women who are interested in preventing and osteoporosis, and lastly for muscle repair. All of these things happen in deep sleep, which you only get if you set your circadian rhythm properly. Otherwise, you
Mm.
get much less than you need to for good health.
Yeah. And another part of your work that I find fascinating is that human biology depends on outdoor cues. We're very sensitive to
Yeah,
sunlight and airflow
that's
and
right.
sensory sort of variation. And I guess, you know, what we have to do now is check the forecast because we don't have that sort of sensory input coming in of, oh, what's the weather actually going to do?
Well, in a way, Tony, any weather other than blizzard and tornadoes and hurricanes and
Mm.
natural disasters is better for us than being inside, where what happens is that, as you described in the flat in London, are confined.
Mm.
And that confinement does a lot of things. It kind of literally makes your world smaller,
Yeah.
even though you don't feel like that because you're connected on the internet to everybody, and it
Mm.
feels like you're connected, but it's not the same thing as a social connection when you're taking a walk by the lake or the park and you run into somebody. And that's a misunderstanding about nature, by the way.
Mm.
Nature is very social, and it's a good thing when you run into people on a walk or playing pickleball
Mm.
or doing anything you like, because that's what contributes to longevity. That's a primarily that's a drive. Community helps not just ameliorate loneliness, which has a mortality risk of about 3/4 pack of cigarettes a day,
Mm.
but also lets you know that the world is bigger than your four walls.
Mm.
So um, uh, it's really important, I think, to experience the outdoors every day. As you know, younger generations have a lot of time going out, hard time going outside. Some go outside barely half an hour a day. I talked to somebody on a podcast a live one that just called in, who said he hadn't been outside all day yesterday, and he was calling because he was having trouble with generalized anxiety
Mm.
and rage when he got an email that he couldn't process well. And it's not his fault. I mean, this is a biologic adaptation to being confined inside, where all your inputs are only electronic and come from artificial blue light, where you're subjected to toxins off of VOCs, off of carpet, microplastics in the air, a buildup of carbon dioxide, which reduces cognitive performance. You get attention fatigue. You being confined inside increases insulin resistance. It increases immune deficits. It promotes insomnia. It has this cognitive lag, as I pointed out. It's in part responsible for the epidemic of myopia worldwide, which is leads to, in about 5% of people, high myopia, which is retinal problems and corneal problems and even blindness in your 30s and 40s. Not many people, but 5% of what's now 90% in Singapore, 40% in California. So we want to reverse this, and it's entirely possible because we're leaving our gains on the table from training, from good diet, from interest in fitness, from biohacks. We're leaving our gains on the table by not using nature as a medical and therapeutic tool.
Yeah, and this podcast, focuses sometimes it's very high tech, but often it's forgotten knowledge. And our ancestors, I guess, and you must have sort of, when you were researching this book, you must have come upon this time and again. Our ancestors must have just think we would be mad to spend all our time indoors when it's nice outside.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't evolve to spend our time 93% inside. We evolved to spend our time outside. We evolved to, at a very basic level, hunt and gather, but we also have a native love of nature that I think has not been, that people recognize when they're on vacation, for example, and they go to the country, or they go to the lake, or they go to the mountains, they go to the beach.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, it's so nice here. And it is. But we forget that in our daily life, and we don't associate it with the idea that time has biologic value. It's actually information for your body. It tells your genes how to work. 50% of your genes express themselves at only specific times of day, which is regulated by your circadian rhythm. And all genes do is make proteins and watch other genes. So and the proteins they make and how well they watch other genes depend in part on the information they're given. And part of the information that they're given for 50% of our genes is what time they should do their work. And we're not giving them that information. And that's why the longevity data about nature engagement, exposure, even adjacency is so dramatic, and basically a hidden root cause, I think, of a loss in health span. You're familiar with this term?
Absolutely, yeah. I should record another podcast on it. Again, it's becoming a real sort of hot topic, especially when people are slightly turned off by the "don't die" movement. But they are interested in, or it just makes more. It's more sort of rationally makes it's easier to get to grips with, to think, oh yeah, 10 more healthy years might be a good one. And certainly, when you talk about it's just that sort of instinctive feeling. We went to a barbecue on Sunday night, and it was pretty cold. Well, it almost felt too cold to be outside. But there was something about our mood when we got home that was different because we'd been outside, and it's almost intangible, but it was there.
It is, and it's there on both sides of the day. So I've described what morning light does for you. Being near dusk or at dusk does something else for you. And there's a chapter on each of them in the book. And at dusk, what happens is that you're looking at red or amber light. In the morning, all that bright blue light gives you that big cortisol response and sets your melatonin for that evening. In the evening, when it's dusk, the red and amber waves of the sun allow your melatonin to be released that evening so that you can go to sleep properly. And it's the only light that doesn't suppress melatonin. And that's because of its wavelengths. And it tells your body it's okay to cool down. It tells your brain that it's the end of the day and you can begin to rest and prepare for deep sleep. It tells you that it restores a sense of natural cycling that we otherwise miss. um, and and that's good for us. It's a way of giving our body the information it needs to function optimally.
I'm going to get onto the 7% fix in a second, but how did you, obviously, you're a New York Times best-selling author. How did you research this book and how did you go about writing it? I'm fascinated from a sort of authorly point of view.
Um, I've been working on this concept about how nature influences health specifically for about as long as I've had this little organic farm that I live on and have designed as a teaching institution. And we teach physicians how to use nature as medicine from a skills based perspective, how to garden, how to
Mm,
forest bathe, how to exercise outside, this green exercise I spoke of, what to do with the stars and the skies, how to develop good soil, and and of course the social aspect of nature. And and when I bought this farm, I was in the middle of a media tour, and I flew to New York. I live in California to be on a high-profile TV show. I worked my butt off to get there,
mm,
and I was back home within 36 hours. I did not schedule like five more things, which I should have done.
yeah.
I just had to come back to the farm and figure out what was going on, even though nothing was really, I didn't have a lot moving yet. I just bought it and it was an abandoned sand dune.
Mm,
And I knew then that I was being pulled and it didn't make sense from a career standpoint, but it had to be some kind of, there had to be some science behind it,
mm,
why I felt this way.
mm,
And over the years, as I planned it out and had lots and lots of people over, what emerged was that everybody felt better when they were here,
mm.
and and it still kind of looks like an abandoned sand dune, but it's better. And so I wanted to know why that was. Why does everyone feel better when they're here? And so I read 2,200 studies,
Mm.
and they're all over the literature. They're landscape architecture, they're internal medicine, they're horticulture, but they all had something to say about the scientific value of specific intentional time in green and blue spaces,
Mm.
which is how the outdoor X is defined. It's specific intentional time in green or blue spaces, which means that it's nice just to be near greenery. And actually, there's some data to show that there are fewer antidepressant prescriptions also actually coming from the UK Biobank that than when you're within 500 meters of a dense greenery,
Mm.
and improve, and actually some interesting telomere um, data for the same. But um, the real payoff is with some kind of engagement. And that's what I describe in the book, the engagement with morning light, the engagement with dusk, the engagement with gardening, the engagement with forest bathing, and the one that's easiest for most people, the engagement with green exercise.
Mm.
So being near blue or green spaces has its own benefits, both mortality benefits and specific medical problem benefits. But um, using just 2 hours of the 12 a week that we spend out time with a minimum effective dose of 17 minutes a day lets you begin to not just enjoy nature, but use it as a biologic tool. And that's, I think, what we've missed.
Yeah. And it's so what you were referring to there with the green exercise and spending time outside, is that, I mean, presumably that's part of the 7% fix.
You bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
7% is all you need is 7% of your waking hours.
Mm,
And that's the 17-minute a day minimum effective dose. The
mm,
optimum effect is only out 5 hours a week,
mm.
about 42 minutes. So, uh,
Really?
yeah, I know.
Wow.
Well, for longevity,
Yeah.
for the 6 hours of of health span gained, which
Mm,
is what we've calculated. And and but it's specific intentional time. It's not stepping out of your doorway to pick up DoorDash, you know. It's it's using the morning light in a deliberate way.
mm,
It's not walking in a park looking at your phone like this, you know.
mm.
Which a lot of people do,
Yeah.
walking on the sidewalk looking at their phone. And a good friend of mine was coming up the stairs from the beach, was looking up his phone. They were pretty steep stairs too, and tripped. He actually fractured his tibia. And
Oh,
I
no.
know it's terrible. And he's an athlete. He recovered in no time, like after 4 months. But it's still
Mm,
that everybody has that kind of story.
mm, mm,
Um, so the 7% solution is a way to use just 7% of your waking time, minimum effective dose, 17 minutes a day, 2 hours a week. That's all it takes. Time you're already spending outside, repurpose that time so that it becomes a biologic tool
mm,
for improving many of the problems that I mentioned the indoor epidemic is responsible for: sleep problems, immune problems,
mm.
insulin resistance, and sedentariness problems for sure, uh, and so on.
Yeah, and obviously the screens thing, I mean, it only really gets worse. We're all more addicted to screens than we once were. I'm
No question.
fascinated. I notice, there's, I think Google have again, no, maybe Meta have again brought out these glasses that you can wear with screens in the glasses. And I don't see as part of the conversation the impact on your light intake from wearing these glasses, but there's got to be one.
Absolutely. That's why it doesn't work to look through windows, by the way, in the morning,
Yeah.
because the window glass filters out the wavelengths that you need.
Mm,
So, and sunglasses do as well. I think Meta has those glasses. That Google gave it a shot as well. Perhaps they're developing more.
yeah.
Um, and I love tech. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by it,
Yeah.
but I don't think I'm going to get a pair.
Yeah.
um, it's sort of not done very well before, and yet there's a larger question which you allude to, like why would you want only artificial content when you actually have outside and your brain is missing
Mm,
information that's easily available to you
mm,
that will improve your longevity, can actually help lengthen your telomeres, reduce the amount of fraying, is remarkable. And it's easier than you think.
mm,
You have your lunch on a park bench instead of at your desk. You take a walking meeting with somebody instead
mm,
of having a meeting in a conference room. You do what you did. And when it's cold outside and it's a barbecue and it'd be easy just to go inside, you stay outside and you socialize,
yeah.
and you enjoy that part of the connection, knowing that it builds your longevity as you
Mm,
do,
mm,
and lowers your blood pressure, by the way,
mm,
uh, as do specific modalities. There are hundreds of suggestions in the book about how to get this outdoor time, how to get your own 7% solution, and that and we there's actually early access to them at indoorepidemic.com, where we want people to have this information because it really can be life changing. 80% of heart disease is preventable. 50% of all depression and anxiety are preventable. 40% of cancers are environmentally related, also preventable. And this book and the kind of research that I did, the way that we're trying to give it to people, I think can reframe how we think about outdoors and use it as a tool.
mm. And when is it out, the book?
March 17th,
Right.
2026. Yeah, just two
Fantastic.
weeks.
So very,
Yeah,
very soon, and
very soon.
people can pre-order it presumably now, but then it'll
Yes.
be out on the. Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. I
Yeah, yeah.
think this will be going out before then.
Oh,
Um,
terrific.
but um, but I'm now interested in your routine. So you said obviously you did live somewhere else, then you moved to a giant sand dune. You obviously live in an amazing place.
I'm
But
really lucky.
what's your routine like, and what have you changed since writing the book?
Morning light is part of my day every day.
Mm,
If I don't get it, it's because I got up at 5 and it's dark here. So, and I know a lot of executives who do the same thing, and night workers too. So there you need a double anchor. You need 10,000 lux light within usually 12 inches of your face reading, and to give your brain that kind of stimulus. And then you need to go outside when the sun does come up,
Mm,
and you're up, to give you a secondary anchor of the much brighter light outside than even the 10,000 lux lamp,
mm.
which doesn't provide all the wavelengths the sun does. So it's kind of it's just a fix by necessity, which is fine. It works, but not as well as natural light. So that's one thing I've changed for sure. Um, um, One other thing is that I've become even more passionate about exercising outside.
Mm.
I play pickleball 3 or 4 times a week for a couple hours at a time,
Mm.
and I try not to miss it, which means
Yeah.
that I schedule everything else around it.
It's so
But
much fun, pickleball, isn't it? That's
it is,
amazing.
yeah. And so um, maybe not optimal for a book tour, but optimal for my health. And
Mm,
so green exercise is part of my day, you know, 3 or 4 times a week with pickleball. And then we live near a beach and I have a dog, so
mm,
I walk the dog. And so those two things I think are most striking. I
mm,
guess the third thing is, and I become more interested myself in the chemistry of this.
mm.
So I read more about the chemistry of like phytoncides. You know
Yeah.
phytoncides?
No.
Phytoncides, Phyton sides,
Mm,
is uh, are the aromatic chemicals that trees make to defend themselves.
mm.
They're part of their tree immune system. And the original research on forest bathing done in 1984 in Tokyo uh, did so with Hinoki cypress, Japanese cypress trees, that showed that that the people who went into the forest with the guide, who was a physician, King Lee, who's an immunologist, showed that their blood pressures dropped dramatically, and their pulses dropped dramatically, and their memories were better. And most interestingly, they had much higher natural killer cell counts, the white blood cells that kill
Mm,
tumor infected cells and virus infected cells in your body.
mm.
In fact, by 56%, both in function and in number, and it lasted a month. And that was the only intervention,
Mm.
being in the forest.
Wow.
Um, and and that was attributed, because they extracted them later and looked at them in the laboratory, to alpha pinene and D-limonene, which or alpha pinene because those are from cypress, and D-limonene is another phytoncide that's present in citrus,
Mm,
particularly grapefruit. And these aromatic chemicals allow trees to fight off predators, but they apparently also have beneficial effects for people because we inhale them as we walk through a forest. They're more in the morning than in the evening, more in the morning and in the evening, more in humid days. So
yeah. Yeah.
those British forests actually have quite a lot to say,
Mm,
uh, and um, and they are powerful chemicals that you get just by walking through a forest, inhaling, and changing your microbiome as they do. So they impact both your immunity and your microbiome, as do your hands in the soil.
mm.
And I've become more interested in that chemistry, and I'm sort of wondering what else we could do with it.
Yeah. And then just finally, so you host other doctors who come to your place and learn about this stuff.
Yeah, we taught a continuing medical education course for UCLA
Mm,
last June 2025, and it was a really interesting experience. The clinicians loved it, and um, I had on a podcast emergency room physician. I helped with her general anxiety, who now recommends hiking for some of her anxiety patients.
mm.
She's seeing in the ER. So it does have an effect. I think it's just starting to be a thing in medical schools in the United States. It's far behind the UK, far behind the EU, frankly,
Mm.
and far behind most of Asia, but we'll catch up.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Well, it's also just something I think most of us instinctively know is right. but it's worth shining a spotlight on it, isn't it? Or shining some natural light on it.
Yes. And it's worth knowing the science behind it, that this
Yeah.
is not just woo. It actually has molecular, even molecular cellular effects that we want to take advantage of, we want to know about, and we want to leverage to our benefit.
Yeah. Pickleball's fun, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
It's not as big as paddle here in Portugal, though.
That's right. I'd love to
Yeah.
play paddle.
Yeah, that's good. But pickleball, I think, is probably my favorite. It's great. John, thank you so much. So, remind people when the book's out and what it's called again.
It's called Indoor Epidemic. It's out March 17th. You can get more information, sign up for early access, and some bonuses at indoorepidemic.com.
Ah, awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And yeah, can't wait to read the book.
Pleasure. Thanks so much, Tony.